thanks so much for joining us. I want to introduce you to a very good friend of mine, Brian Nolen. He is sitting at his home in Bedford, New Hampshire right now with two really special new friends, Mila and Eugene, who have only been here a couple of weeks from Ukraine. And Brian felt really, really passionately about wanting to do something on the ground to help people who are fleeing the war in Ukraine. And he wanted to do more than just send money over to some large NGO, not knowing what was going to happen, or even if he would be able to help people who were in direct, need of these resources. So he is going over to Eastern Europe for a few weeks. He's leaving tomorrow. And he's going to share with us some of his plans about what he hopes to accomplish. And then Mila and Eugene are going to give us a little bit more information about how Brian will be able to very specifically help and get aid directly to some friends and family in need in Ukraine. So Brian, tell us a little bit about how you decided to go over to Eastern Europe.
Yeah. I've seen the footage on TV like a lot of people, and I just felt so compelled to do something. I felt so helpless being here, and I felt like sending money, like you mentioned, to a large organization just wasn't the most cost-effective way to help people over there. So initially I looked into getting involved at the border, maybe feeding people or finding housing for them or something like that. And I got involved with some groups on Facebook who are on the ground over there. And what I found out after talking to a lot of people over there was that they had plenty of help over there. They had plenty of labor at the border. What they really needed was transportation for the people, either from the border to a major city like Krakow or Warsaw or Berlin, or transportation from one of those cities to their end destination outside the city. So I made some contacts and started making plans. And then just through good fortune, I was introduced to Mila and Eugene through my sister and her husband. And everything has just fallen into place over the last week or so. I finally booked my flight, and I managed to find a 9-passenger van for rent in Berlin. So I'm flying in Thursday morning into Berlin, picking up the van. And the last few days, we've all been coordinating with Mila and Eugene's contacts in Ukraine and Poland to actually coordinate things so I can hit the ground running. I want to use my time efficiently there and do as much good as we can. So what we're trying to do is set up westbound loads of people, taking them away from the border, dropping them off where necessary, then loading up the van with different types of supplies that they need at the border, running it back to the border, dropping it off, and just keep the wheels turning the whole time I'm over there.
Yeah. So Mila and Eugene, how do you think that Brian will be able to be effective, maybe in a way that just donating to an NGO might be less effective, or take a lot more time, I guess, for resources to get to people who are in need?
Yeah, first of all, we are super grateful to Brian, and actually that's a big thing, basically leave your home, comfort, everything and go into unknown, right? So this is a huge step, and for us as Ukrainian, that just warms our hearts, seeing people like you. My name is Mila, and that's the short version, right? Full name in Ukrainian is Lyudmila. Me and my husband, we are both from a little town in west part of Ukraine called Ivano-Frankivsk. It's close to the big city you would know, probably Lviv. So we are from there, and we arrived to the States approximately 2 weeks ago. And when war started, we were in Sri Lanka. So we kind of got stuck on vacation, and we stayed there for a few weeks, and then our relatives in US just offered us a place to stay and invited us to come over. So that's how we actually ended up in the States. Eugene?
My name is Eugene. My Ukrainian name is Yevgen. I'm working in IT, and we are really blessed that we can continue work remotely for our jobs, and we are combining our full-time job on our European time zone. And helping Ukrainians and Polish guys to coordinate volunteering work from Poland to other countries, from Ukrainian border to other countries in Europe to help people evacuate out from Ukraine.
Yeah. So where Brian would be able to help is actually in a few areas. So one of the areas is helping to evacuate foster families and family type homes from Ukraine, because these families are quite big, and what happens very often, they might get to the border, I don't know, 4, 8, 12 people in the car. But then from the border to go somewhere else, they need bigger transportation, right, to go. So Brian would be able to help there. Also, we have put Brian in contact with our partners in Switzerland that are accepting refugees from Ukraine. So Brian would be able to help pick up people, families, basically in different regions in Poland, and bring them to the bus that is going to Switzerland, because quite a lot of families which are in Poland right now don't really have the means to get to the bus, or don't know how, or are afraid to, right? So if someone helps them to get to the point, that would be very helpful. Another thing is that it's been like, what, 2 weeks of war, and many volunteers have been in this from day one, right? So people are just getting exhausted, burned out. So if someone else comes in, you know, even if it's for a short period of time, and helps to with what they're doing, that's going to be quite a big relief. And also Eugene also helped to set up a few additional activities.
Yeah, we are keep in touch with local volunteers from Poland and Ukraine in Wrocław, who are collecting some donations, and meaning like goods donation across Europe, across Poland, and we are getting in touch with them to help them transport these goods to the Ukrainian border, so Ukrainian guys can pick up these goods from the border to Ukraine and move it across Ukraine to distribute this help to direct locations.
Yeah, that's the fastest way. For example, we would like Brian to pick up some goods for the local orphanages in our hometown. So there is a supplier in Germany that is willing to donate some children food to orphans in Ukraine. But basically, to get it from Germany to Ukraine, first, it might cost quite a lot, and second, it's time, right? And this is what we don't have, right? So if person like Brian just brings it from Germany to the border with Ukraine, someone from the volunteers in Ukraine is going to pick it up and just drive it directly to the final destination in Ukraine. So that just saves time and money.
So Mila, we were talking the other day, and you told me about a friend of yours, a single father with a 7-year-old daughter, who doesn't speak any languages other than Ukraine, and that he has had a particularly difficult time. He was able to get from the border to another city, but once he gets to the city, he can't find any safe housing from there, right? I was just wondering if you would just very briefly tell us a little bit about his story, and maybe how Brian might be able to aid families in his type of situation while he's over there too.
Yeah, so he's basically a single father from a very small town in our region. I don't even know who gave him my contact information, right? So he reached out and said, look, I am in Poland here in a town near Wrocław. I'm with my 7-year-old, I'm alone. And I'm almost ran out of money. I heard that in Switzerland there are good conditions where we could live and receive some food and housing. How can I get to Switzerland? And basically, I tried to explain to him all different options, but the only question he asks is like, can you promise me that once I get to the train station, I'll have a place to stay, you know, I won't have to sleep at the train station was my daughter. So basically, I ended up just sending him my personal money to his account so that he has something on his card and he feels secure that even in the worst case scenario, he will have some money to book the hotel room. But like, for example, if Brian were there, he would be able just to pick him and his daughter up and basically bring to the bus that goes to Switzerland, right? Because he is just terrified. He hasn't traveled before. He doesn't speak the language. So for him to get to from Poland to Switzerland is like 4 different trains, you know, where you need to understand where you're going, what you're doing, and actually have money to pay for that, right? So at this point, he just ended up staying where he is because he's scared to make a move, that he's going to lose everything that he has in Poland, and he's not sure he will be able to get to Switzerland. And I'm sure there are more families like him.
Mhm.
Yeah. Anyway, so one of the things, or one of the reasons, I guess, that we wanted to do this was because we're creating a GoFundMe page. I know so many people who would like to donate money to help in ways that will have direct impacts on people's lives as they're resettling from Ukraine, and to help those who are still in Ukraine. Certainly the story about, you know, the children at the orphanage needing supplies and not being able to get those supplies. That's definitely the kind of thing that I would like to support in any way that I can. So me and one of Brian's brothers, Pat Nolen, we decided to create a GoFundMe page. And I think one of the great things about donating money to support Brian in this venture is that, you know, we can put an amount that we want to raise on here. So we could put $5,000 or $10,000 or something, but really this is kind of open and fluid. We're going to be able to, or Brian is going to be able to purchase as many supplies as he has funds for, and be able to deliver those directly to the people who need them the most. And one of the things that I want to do is to keep updating the page, maybe have record some conversations with Brian while he's over in Poland, and maybe even, you know, meet some of the families through video that he's helping along the way too. So our hope is that we'll be able to sort of post some of these stories where people's aid is directly helping people, and they can actually see this going to work. One of the things that I think is also really important, Mila mentioned this the other day, that Brian going over as, you know, an American man and getting to know the situation on the ground, really seeing it with his own eyes, he's going to be able to bring back a lot of sort of logistical information to other people who might want to go over and do this after him. Once he returns, he might be able to extend his stay and do this for longer. But also the information that he has is going to be really, really helpful, I think, for making connections and for setting up longer term aid to people once he returns. I think his hope is that he'll be able to put some families directly into contact with some people here in the US who might like to sponsor them. And make some personal connections. So that's something that we would, you know, hope would emerge out of all of this too. But Mila, you were mentioning that there's another issue that Americans probably should be focusing on too.
Yeah, I mean, as Ukrainians, and Eugene, you can jump in here. We arrived 2 weeks ago, right? And we arrived basically on March 3rd. And we realized that on the day we arrived, that there was the temporal protection status issued in United States, but it was valid only for Ukrainians that were in the country till March 1st. So which basically means we missed our chance for temporal protection status by 2 days. So what it means for us personally, right? We cannot apply for work authorization, right? We are not eligible for medical insurance, and we have difficulties with basic things because we are here on business visitor visa, right? So we are limited in basically everything. Yeah, what you could help us with is, I mean, write to your senator, right? Help us lobby this question that United States could help us as refugees, right? To get the legal right to stay in the country while we are here temporarily, right?
Because it's not like you can just return back to Ukraine right now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Europe and Canada are pretty open right now, so they give all the legal rights to everyone who asks for it. And we would like to stay here legally, to be able to work while we are here, right? Pay taxes, and just, you know, it wasn't our choice to flee the country, right? So we would definitely appreciate some help for people like us that left the country after March 1st, right? Because that was just a few days after the war started, to be able to stay in United States legally with all the rights.
And right now, more and more families are coming,
Yeah.
Because still they need to make a way from Ukraine to United States across a couple of European countries, and more and more people are coming after the March 1st date, and they do not have any support from the states, I would say so, to continue and resettle their lives here.
And given the low unemployment rate, especially here in New Hampshire, there's an acute labor shortage here. There are probably plenty of businesses who would love to see these people come over. They would be a real positive net impact to the economy around here, no doubt.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us. Mila and Eugene, it's been such a pleasure to meet you, and I hope that we'll continue to get to talk throughout the next few weeks too. And Brian, we wish you the best of luck, and hopefully this will generate some financial support for your efforts while you're there too.
Yeah. Thanks to you and Pat setting up the page. And people need to understand, the more money we take in, the more supplies I can buy. They need food, medicines, children's clothing, blankets, light military gear that's not expensive, but the military is running short on. So dig deep, everybody. The more you give, the more people we can help. And I'm prepared to stay over there for at least another 2 weeks after my initial 2-week stint. And my brother-in-law, Todd, wants to head over there around April 8th or so and join me. So we can do a lot of good. And this is the ultimate in direct aid. If people want to avoid the middleman, the overhead of a large organization, every dollar you send over there is going to help us help these people. I'm paying my way, and I'm paying for the van and all my expenses. And the more aid we get, the more good we can do over there. So please dig deep and give what you can and pass the word around. We thank you for that.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Angela.
Thank you.